Live at Studio North. On the morning after the meltdown, we know now, if there was ever any doubt, Kamala Harris is not qualified to be president. She lacks so much. She lacks knowledge. She lacks comportment. She lacks discipline. She lacks manners. She is easily angered, and her staff and she are both manipulative, as you'll hear Brett explain. But we knew all that. We knew it all. It was confirmed last night. Brett Baier is a pro, but he would not allow himself to be rolled, and I applauded him throughout. Now, I've done, in the 25 years of this show, about 30,000 interviews. And if you add in my radio and television career from 1990 to 2000, probably 40,000 interviews. Only on a few occasions have I encountered someone who was as difficult to get a straight answer from as the vice president. Brett remained calm, persistent, redirected. After the meltdown was over and there was only a puddle of water where she had been standing, Brett Baier went on the show after the show and explained the trick they tried to play on Fox News and the audience. It's a trick on you, by the way. It's not just a trick on Brett and Fox News. It's a trick on you. Cut number 13.
When the kicker in football, they call a timeout right before he's going to kick the field goal. They're icing the kicker. So we were supposed to start at 5 p.m. This was the time they gave us. Originally, we were going to do 25 or 30 minutes. They came in and said, well, maybe 20. So it was already getting whittled down. And then the vice president showed up about 5:15. We were pushing the envelope to be able to turn it around for the top of the 6 o'clock. So that's how it started. And I could tell when we started talking that she was going to be tough to redirect without me trying to interrupt. I did this with President Obama. At one point, I just said, Mr. President, I know you like the filibuster. I just didn't even have the chance to sometimes redirect in those ways. I had a lot of other questions.
Brett Baier brought up immigration, President Biden's decline, Iran. He didn't mention China, but he ran out of time to bring up China. And he brought up the gender reassignment policy. I have a new Fox News column out this morning on the Arab American vote and why it is split 42-41. And I listened to a great discussion about it yesterday. And part of that discussion on the commentary pod is that the Arab American community is culturally conservative, whether it's Muslim Arabs or Christian Arabs or secular Arabs. They're culturally conservative, and the whole gender reassignment surgery and propaganda has turned them off like it's turned off a lot of America. Of course, Kamala is all in with transgender reassignment surgeries. She's all in for the taxpayers paying for them for prisoners. And Brett brought up Donald Trump's ad last night, cut number 9.
So are you still in support of using taxpayer dollars to help prison inmates or detained illegal aliens to transition to another gender?
I will follow the law. And it's a law that Donald Trump actually followed. You're probably familiar with, now it's a public report, that under Donald Trump's administration, these surgeries were available on a medical necessity basis to people in the federal prison system. And I think, frankly, that ad from the Trump campaign is a little bit of like throwing stones when you're living in a glass house.
The Trump aides say that he never advocated for that prison policy and no gender transition surgeries happened during his presidency. You got to take responsible for what happened in your administration. Yeah, no surgeries happened in this presidency.
It's
so
now, the reason I want you to hear that, you've got to be responsible for what happened in your administration. There were no gender transition surgeries, whatever the law said. She advocated for them in California, but most importantly, she said, you've got to be responsible for what happened in your administration, which then brings us to cut number 10, which is the killer. And I think Brett remained cool throughout, but I think he knew this was in his pocket. Cut number 10.
Frankly, exhausted of Brett.
More than 70% of people tell the country is on the wrong track. They say the country is on the wrong track. If it's on the wrong track, That track follows 3.5 years of you being vice president and President Biden being president. That is what they're saying, 79% of them. Why are they saying that? If you're turning the page, you've been in office for 3.5 years.
And Donald Trump has been running for office.
But you've been the person holding the office.
Come on.
Madam Vice President.
You and I both know what I'm talking about. You and I both know what I'm talking about.
I actually don't. What are you talking about?
What I'm talking about is that over the last decade,
but
people
you're the
have
lever
become.
Of power.
But listen, over the last decade, it is clear to me, and certainly the Republicans who are on stage with me.
Now, I've got to tell you right now, I think her numbers will crash. They were already falling. I think they will now plummet. They will plummet because people will see clips of her being angry, obstreperous, combative, and filibustering, which really Americans hate. They hate the guy or the gal in the room who will not shut up to listen to the question and will not answer the question. She never answered the question. Nevertheless, Trump Derangement Society Club got together online after the debate and proceeded to pronounce her brilliant and extraordinary. It reminded me, of course, of this. Hit it, Adam.
Stand aside. I move for no man. So be it. Now stand aside, worthy adversary.
'Tis but a scratch.
A scratch?
'Tis but a scratch. She has no arms and no legs at the end of that duel. She is bleeding profusely. She's going to be toppled over, but there are some people standing on the sidelines on X proclaiming her the winner and that she did a great job and that she reached the Fox audience. No, it's not the Fox audience. It's the entire country. It's her first actually difficult interview. It wasn't ABC covering for her. It wasn't Dana Bash not redirecting. It was not 60 Minutes editing. It was Brett Baer in a chair for 25 minutes, and she melted down. And she got so angry. To me, the lasting takeaway is, wow, she cannot control her temper. Scott Jennings, my guest yesterday, went on CNN with Wolf Blitzer, cut number 16.
She has no answer for why Biden and Harris threw out Donald Trump's executive orders and changed everything, and then a flood of people came in. An ounce of humility here would go a long way, and she doesn't have it in her to do it, and she has no real answer other than to blame Congress. And Brett was right. Democrats controlled everything when they took over, and so is she saying it's the Democrats' fault that the immigration system is broken? I don't understand this. I don't understand why she can't just say, hindsight here, we shouldn't have done it. I think the American people would actually accept it, but she won't do it.
I believe he's right. All she has to do is say, Brett, mistakes were made. And I am the last person in the room, and we had no idea that 10 million people would cross the southern border. And we are doing our best to take care of them and to take care of the American people and to provide resources where they are needed and, if necessary, deport those who must be deported. It's very easy to do. She cannot do it. You know why? She's afraid of follow-ups. She is afraid of follow-ups. She doesn't know the issue. She was the border czar in quotes, meaning that she was told, this is a direct quote from Joe Biden on the day that she was appointed the head of everything on the border. Your job is to stem the flow. Work with the Central American countries and stem the flow. She did neither. The flow increased. The flow overwhelmed us. So I did not expect Brett threw a great curveball at me. I thought he would begin with the economy, but obviously he went right to immigration. He could have talked to her for a lot more. Here's my Monday morning quarterbacking for Kamala. Brett did exactly what the best anchor in television should do and did do. He pressed her on issues of importance to swing voters, and there are a lot of them. What Kamala ought to have done is said, let's talk for 2 hours. Will you give me 2 hours? And will you not interrupt me until I speak at least 30 seconds? Because Brett, who's been given 30 minutes, it's cut down to 20 minutes, and he's getting, I've been in the room when this happens, get the frantic wave, wrap it up sign from 4 20-somethings who are worried that their boss is melting down in front of them, and he acknowledges them, which is the polite thing to do instead of just pushing forward. They were promised a half hour, we were announced a half hour, and they were trying to shorter because she was so bad. Kamala Harris is not ready in the least to be president. If you vote for her, you are voting for a disaster. And I close with this. There have got to be more than a few Democrats who are elected Democrats sitting around this morning thinking maybe it's just as good that she goes down. Maybe we pull the reins a little bit on our get out the vote effort. Maybe we don't do as much as we were going to do because we really do not want to run in 2026 with her at the top of the ticket because the American people will be angry at me for supporting her. And they will, I think, begin to dial back this absurdity, unless the never Trumpers never will. They have no alternative.